Have you ever found yourself overwhelmed by the smallest things, overthinking every interaction, worrying about how others perceive you, and feeling drained by your thoughts? If so, you're not alone. This video dives deep into the habits that make us persistently sensitive and how they can trap us in a cycle of internal torment. But here's the crucial part: by understanding these habits and the ways our minds can trick us, you can learn to break free and cultivate a stronger, more resilient mindset. Stay with us until the end and discover how you can transform your sensitivity into a source of strength. If you haven't yet subscribed, I highly recommend doing so and activating the notification bell to ensure you never miss a video. Your support means a lot to me as we continue to grow our community and reach more people with our content. If you enjoy the topic of this video, please leave a comment with the number 1. If it's not quite your cup of tea, drop a 0 in the comments. Your feedback is crucial in helping me create content that better serves you. Let's get started. Dr. Elaine Aron has profoundly revealed a compelling truth about the human experience. Approximately 15% to 20% of people worldwide possess an extraordinary level of sensitivity. This statistic means that 1 out of every 5 individuals navigates life with an intensely perceptive and empathetic nature. For these highly sensitive souls, the smallest of disturbances can feel like seismic shifts, causing their hearts to churn with waves of emotion. Such individuals often grapple with a relentless internal struggle, where even seemingly minor incidents are blown out of proportion. The result is a life fraught with emotional exhaustion and self-imposed turmoil. A striking quote encapsulates this reality: sensitive people create pain for themselves before anything happens. A Zen master once shared a particularly illuminating story that sheds light on this experience. On a business trip, he found himself in the throes of travel fatigue after a long and tiresome flight. He hired a car to continue his journey, but his exhaustion led to a small mishap. He accidentally slammed the car door too forcefully, causing a jarring bang that reverberated through the quiet surroundings. At that moment, the driver, momentarily taken aback, turned towards him with a dark, inscrutable expression. The Zen master, sensing an immediate shift in the atmosphere, quickly offered a heartfelt apology, but the driver's silence spoke volumes. As they drove through the city, the Zen master's mind became a tumultuous sea of apprehension. He scrutinized every nuance of the driver's behavior, interpreting the driver's every move through a lens of perceived hostility. The brief moments of silence at red lights seemed laden with unspoken discontent. The driver's swift acceleration at green lights was perceived as an overt sign of irritation, while the occasional grumblings during traffic jams and the sharp twists of the steering wheel were interpreted as manifestations of displeasure. Each interaction, each gesture, was filtered through a growing sense of guilt and self-reproach that gnawed at him incessantly. The Zen master's mind, overwhelmed by a storm of self-doubt and internal conflict, spun with thoughts of how he had offended the driver. His imagination wove a narrative of hostility and resentment that was entirely his creation. He was on the verge of offering another apology as they neared their destination, bracing himself for the possibility of a confrontation. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. But as the car came to a stop and he prepared to disembark, he was taken by surprise. The driver, once perceived as distant and unfriendly, suddenly shifted to a more engaging and affable demeanor. With a warm smile, the driver began to share insights about the local area, enthusiastically recommending attractions and food streets. The Zen master was further astounded when the driver offered to assist with his luggage, showing a genuine eagerness to help. In that moment of clarity, a profound realization dawned upon the Zen master. The driver's actions had been benign all along, uncolored by any hidden animosity. The discomfort and anxiety he had felt were entirely self-generated, born from his own overactive imagination and inner turmoil. He tended to overthink and dwell on perceived slights that had ensnared him in a web of unnecessary guilt and distress. The driver had remained unaffected by the incident, while the Zen master's internal friction had been the true source of his suffering. This experience served as a powerful reminder of how our internal narratives and emotional responses can create a reality far removed from the truth. It highlighted the importance of recognizing when our anxieties and overthinking are distorting our perceptions, causing us to suffer needlessly. The story exemplifies how our minds can trap us in cycles of self-inflicted pain, obscuring the genuine, often benign nature of the world around us. Often the struggles and dissatisfaction we experience in life are of our own making. A profound insight from philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer resonates with this reality. The greatest weakness of human nature is caring about how others see you. There is nothing in this world that should bother you except your mind. This wisdom underscores how sensitive individuals frequently burden themselves with the weight of others' perceptions, inadvertently magnifying their distress. In a revealing psychological experiment, researchers sought to illuminate this very phenomenon. They gathered 10 volunteers and placed them in a series of rooms stripped of mirrors, ensuring that the participants were isolated from their reflections. To set the stage for the experiment, the volunteers were adorned with strikingly realistic scar makeup applied by skilled special effects artists. Once each participant had viewed their newly created scars through small mirrors, the psychologists removed the mirrors and informed the volunteers that to enhance the authenticity of the scars, a light powder would be applied. However, instead of applying powder as promised, the researchers secretly used wet cotton pads to gently remove the fake scars from the volunteers' faces. With the scars now invisible, the volunteers were instructed to act as if they were patients with visible facial scars and to spend time in a hospital waiting room, observing the reactions of others around them. Following the experiment, the psychologists debriefed the volunteers, asking them to share their experiences and impressions. The responses were telling. One participant noted, "The overweight woman in the waiting room gave me a look of utter disdain as soon as she saw me." Another said, "A middle-aged man on the sofa seemed to hastily leave as if he couldn't bear to be near me," and a third commented, "Too well-dressed, seemingly educated young women kept whispering and laughing behind their hands, clearly mocking me." These reactions reflect a powerful truth about human nature. The anxieties and judgments we perceive from others are often constructed by our minds. The volunteers, despite having no real scars, projected their insecurities and fears onto the reactions of those around them. Their experiences highlight how our perceptions of ourselves and our assumed judgments from others can create a narrative of rejection and scorn that exists primarily in our minds. This experiment underscores the profound impact of self-perception on our emotional well-being, illustrating how we often inflict unnecessary suffering on ourselves through our interpretations of others' responses. Without exception, every single volunteer in the experiment felt acutely aware of being scrutinized because of the scars they believed they had. They were convinced that their supposed imperfections were the focal point of everyone's attention. However, when the psychologists unveiled the truth that the scars were never real and had been removed, the volunteers were stunned into disbelief. It became glaringly apparent that their distress was not rooted in any actual judgment or criticism from others, but was a direct result of their preconceived notions and internal biases. Their heightened sensitivity and suspicion had been entirely self-generated. This revelation echoes a concept introduced in a Harvard Open course by a professor known as the 3M Misinterpretation, Magnification, and Minimization. This framework explores how our cognitive distortions can significantly influence our emotional responses. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. 1. Misinterpretation. Misinterpretation arises when an individual distorts or misconstrues a situation to such an extent that a single failure is unjustly perceived as a sign of permanent, lifelong defeat. This cognitive distortion involves a fundamental misunderstanding where a temporary setback is wrongly viewed as a reflection of one's entire ability or value. Instead of recognizing that failure is often an isolated event, the individual generalizes this single instance to represent their overall capabilities or character. For instance, if someone receives criticism on a project, misinterpretation might lead them to believe that this isolated piece of negative feedback signifies their overall incompetence or lack of worth. This perspective fosters a skewed view where one failure is seen as indicative of a broader, unchangeable flaw in their abilities or self-worth. The individual might then feel an overwhelming sense of hopelessness, thinking that this singular failure is a permanent fixture in their life rather than a temporary challenge. This distorted thinking can have profound emotional impacts. It leads to a pervasive sense of inadequacy and a debilitating fear of future failures, which can stifle personal and professional growth. By allowing a single negative experience to overshadow their entire self-assessment, individuals may become paralyzed by self-doubt and lose sight of their true potential and capacity for resilience. Misinterpretation, therefore, not only skews their understanding of specific events but also hampers their ability to engage constructively with challenges and setbacks. 2. Magnification. Magnification is a cognitive distortion where individuals obsessively focus on minor details such as their failures or mistakes, exaggerating their significance to an extreme degree. This distortion involves an intense fixation on small faults or shortcomings, allowing these minor imperfections to dominate one's perspective and overshadow their broader accomplishments and strengths. In this pattern of thinking, a trivial mistake or a slight error can become disproportionately magnified in the person's mind. For example, if someone makes a small error in a presentation, magnification might lead them to believe that this minor slip undermines their entire performance, and by extension, their competence. This intense focus on a single fault can eclipse the many positive aspects of their work, such as the overall quality of the presentation, the effort invested, and the successful delivery of key points. Magnification distorts reality by blowing minor issues out of proportion and ignoring the bigger picture. It creates an emotional environment where small setbacks are seen as monumental failures, fueling a sense of inadequacy and self-criticism. This exaggerated focus on imperfections can prevent individuals from recognizing their overall achievements and strengths, leading to a skewed and often negative self-assessment. As a result, magnification can undermine confidence and motivation, making it challenging to appreciate one's genuine progress and capabilities. 3. Minimization. Minimization is a cognitive distortion characterized by the tendency to imagine and amplify negative outcomes without substantial evidence, thereby inflating the perceived severity of potential adverse consequences. This distortion involves an exaggerated focus on the possible negative scenarios, despite the lack of concrete or significant evidence supporting these fears. Essentially, it's the act of overestimating the gravity of what could potentially go wrong, even when the actual threat or risk is minimal or non-existent. For instance, if someone is preparing for a presentation, minimization might lead them to obsess over potential failures, such as stumbling over words or forgetting key points. Despite having prepared thoroughly and having no concrete evidence that such issues will arise, they might envision catastrophic outcomes, such as being completely discredited or failing in their role. This tendency to blow potential problems out of proportion creates an atmosphere of heightened anxiety and dread. Minimization distorts one's perception by magnifying the potential impact of negative events, making them appear far more severe than they are. This exaggerated sense of impending doom can be paralyzing, leading to excessive worry and stress over scenarios that are unlikely to materialize. Consequently, minimization not only distorts the reality of potential risks but also impairs one's ability to approach situations with a balanced and rational mindset, often resulting in unnecessary fear and avoidance. In cognitive behavioral therapy, a fundamental principle is that it is not the event itself that affects you, but your interpretation and association with it. This perspective is crucial in both professional and personal realms. Often, the core of our suffering lies not in the negative events we experience, but in our exaggerated speculation and interpretation of others' thoughts and motives. The pain we feel is frequently a result of our skewed perceptions rather than objective reality. To alleviate this suffering, it is essential to address and correct these distorted perceptions. By shifting our mindset and learning to interpret situations more accurately, we can transform our sensitive responses and reduce the emotional turmoil caused by our misconceptions. This adjustment in perspective allows us to break free from the cycle of self-inflicted distress and cultivate a more balanced and resilient outlook on life. In The Benefits of Numbness, Wada Benjinichi recounts a compelling story that sheds light on the profound impact of our responses to setbacks and challenges in the workplace. The narrative centers around two new employees, Ken and Ainlay, who both joined a company and, due to an initial mistake, found themselves in a difficult situation. On their first day, Ken and Ainlay both made errors in their work. Unfortunately, their boss was having a particularly bad day, and as a result, delivered a severe reprimand to both employees in front of their colleagues. This public scolding was a blow to their confidence and set a tense tone for their subsequent work. The following day, Ken demonstrated an impressive level of resilience. Despite the previous day's harsh criticism, he chose to approach the day with a positive outlook. He greeted his coworkers with a genuine smile, engaged in his tasks with enthusiasm, and carried himself with an air of normalcy. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment on number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. His ability to rebound from the criticism and maintain a positive demeanor did not go unnoticed. Over time, Ken's consistent positive performance and proactive attitude earned him praise from his boss. His constructive response to the initial setback eventually led to an early promotion, marking a significant career advancement. In stark contrast, Ainlay's response to the same situation was markedly different. Instead of moving past the criticism, Ainlay allowed it to cast a long shadow over his mood and behavior. He remained sullen and withdrawn, avoiding interaction with his colleagues and brooding over the reprimand. This pervasive negativity and self-doubt began to erode his work performance. The more Ainlay dwelled on his perceived failure, the more his productivity and engagement declined. This downward spiral of diminishing performance led to his eventual dismissal from the company, illustrating the detrimental effects of allowing negative emotions to dominate one's response to challenges. Psychotherapist Elsa Sander offers insight into these contrasting outcomes through her concepts of the vicious cycle and the virtuous cycle. Vicious cycle. The vicious cycle is characterized by a pattern of pessimistic responses to challenges. Ainlay's experience is a classic example of this cycle. Reacting negatively to the reprimand, he succumbed to self-doubt and a pervasive sense of failure. This negativity influenced his subsequent work performance, creating a self-reinforcing loop of decline. The more he allowed his negative feelings to take hold, the worse his performance became, leading to a continuous downward spiral of worsening outcomes and ultimately, his dismissal. Virtuous cycle. In contrast, the virtuous cycle represents a positive feedback loop where constructive responses to problems lead to improved outcomes. Ken exemplified this cycle. His positive reaction to the reprimand and his ability to maintain an optimistic outlook allowed him to address his challenges effectively. This positive behavior resulted in a commendation from his boss and enhanced performance, which further fueled his success and career advancement. The virtuous cycle illustrates how a proactive and positive approach can lead to continuous improvement and a reinforcing loop of positive feedback and achievements. This story vividly illustrates how our responses to adversity can shape our trajectories in both professional and personal realms. Embracing a positive mindset and focusing on constructive problem solving can initiate a virtuous cycle of growth and success. Conversely, negative reactions and self-doubt can entrap individuals into a vicious cycle of decline and failure. Understanding and applying these concepts can help individuals navigate challenges more effectively, fostering resilience and promoting long-term success. To cultivate a resilient, anti-sensitive disposition, it is essential to transform negative perceptions, embrace self-acceptance, and foster a positive mindset that sets the stage for entering a virtuous cycle. Strength lies in one's ability to heal and fortify oneself from within, while those who remain excessively sensitive often struggle with persistent vulnerability. Life is replete with unavoidable challenges, whether it's harsh criticism from a boss, a friend's indifference, or an offhand remark from a stranger. The more we dwell on these negative experiences, the deeper we sink into a quagmire of discontent and emotional exhaustion. Rather than allowing yourself to be ensnared by self-doubt and guilt, summon the courage to shift away from sensitivity and fragility. Embrace a perspective that consistently seeks the positive side of any situation. As you alter your mindset, you'll find that your perception of the world transforms alongside you. Christopher Kendo poignantly illustrates this in his reflection, "Everyone encounters two arrows. The first arrow is fired by the external world, symbolizing the hardships and setbacks we face. The second arrow is shot by ourselves, representing the self-inflicted negative emotions that arise from these difficulties. Often, the second arrow wounds us more deeply because we are intimately aware of our vulnerabilities. To truly cultivate inner strength and an anti-sensitive constitution, we must fortify our hearts and shift our reactions to challenges. By embracing resilience and a positive outlook, we can transform our experiences and navigate life's hurdles with grace and strength." As we wrap up this video, take a moment to reflect on everything we've discussed. What have you learned so far? We would love to hear your thoughts. Comment below with one thing you've learned and plan to bring into practice in your life. Your insights could inspire others in our community as well. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support helps us continue to create content that empowers and connects us all. Thank you for watching.